is no such thing as death. In all honesty, to tell you the truth, the actual truth, there is no such thing as death to souls, yet in sleep's rigor mortis, we're forced to practice for when our souls leave this flesh suit at the end, if that's what happens, as it's going to be the case with majority, I'm sure. The idea for this video actually came to me in the theta, or the stage, going into sleep last night. All throughout the mainstream media, especially in the horror genre, and worse, those who've been in wars, like this one international psychological and nanotech pseudo-invisible war we are involved in now, is full of death and dying. But the dark ones try to hide it, and getting drafted, in nursing homes, and in Humans 2.0. We see a massive amount of creeping, rapidly growing imposition of forced death. Probably the greatest extinction event ever caused by our acceptance of the rules, regulations, and mandates of our false gods. Yet death doesn't really exist as we've been told. For example, is this man dead? Is James Brown really dead? Or does he actually live by creating the beautiful music he created? Usually bodies die, but the soul of the person flies on to become a lost soul or a ghost. It goes into the, most often, tragically, it goes into the tunnel of light to be forced to reincarnate, or the massively advanced souls of the enlightened can ascend out of the Saturn Moon Matrix's forced memory wipe and reincarnation system. Some folks actually think that the most pure awakened souls can take their flesh suit with them and ascend with their avatars. But I don't know, honestly, I don't know if anyone knows if this is vastly wishful thinking. What is obvious is that there is no such thing as death to souls, as souls constantly transform and grow or travel, specifically after leaving the body. Okay? That so-called death is a transformation for the soul. Okay? First of all, see how we exist in an inverted death cult matrix culturally, how it's, the majority of it is based in your fear of God or your fear of death. How nearly every person who's not an enlightened master has done dumbass shit in their life, including the one talking, based largely in the fear of death. It's very difficult to get all of this out of our subconscious mind unless we're extremely spiritually courageous, or to not let it seep back in some way culturally through the mind control programming. It is a concept used to keep us glued to the violent, patriarchal junior gods who use us for our energy. Ironically, they run the matrix soul-sucking beast on fear of death, while obedience to their concepts in any way, if we obey these ideas in any way, is the only actually real soul death. Okay? If you accept worship or Nazi mind control or box loneliness and financial slavery, the fear of death makes you somewhat a living dead being, obviously. And a non-player character or a person with very bad narcissistic personality disorder is spiritually dead because their soul is being so somewhat replaced with Lucifer's trashing, you know, with Lucifer's voice or the archontic voices which cause them to trash and destroy their own soul and other souls. So, ironically, it is while we are in the flesh suit, if we obey these sick ideas, we are dead. But after leaving the body, our souls go on other adventures or other lifetimes, tortured as slaves while the Saturn Moon Matrix still exists. We agree to come back here without awareness, if we're not some kind of bodhisattva master, if that even exists. Whether or not we're open to these truths, every single night we get good rest. Our bodies, every night a good sleep, our bodies go through a kind of temporary rigor mortis. Your body's laying there like you're dead. They lay and don't move for like 8 hours, right? So, and finally facing my existence in this body and my relationship to cannabis, having suffered bad depression since age 14 and having noticed internal benign cancers in my body the year before that, with systematic Mr. Essay that also began in my teens at 19, I have always thought, I've always had this thought of codependence with this plant medicine. I need cannabis and have accepted it as a best friend, because it's a really extremely healing, temporarily healing plant. I have accepted it as a best friend that would be someone, I chuckled and frowned at the same time at a person when I got into cannabis in my mid-teen years who said to me that I would be a person who would be married to Mary Jane. Though ganja can make probably 96% of all illnesses temporarily lessen or go away, it's just not healthy. I just don't like having to need something outside of my own self to be well, okay? Just psychologically, Unless if I was growing the cannabis and I had an extremely healthy relationship with it, even then. Even the coffee I just drank to make this video, even the need of anything outside of the self seems to me on a deep level that could be unhealthy. It's although we're all sharing this planetary experience with all these, one of those things that in the Bible that I agree with, that the plants and medicines were given to us to use. I have had a very heavy psychological dependence, and while admitting cannabis is a great and wonderfully powerful medicine that has given me the energy and temporary pseudo courage to create all but 3 of these video talks, about 497 of these with no sex life, and what actually temporarily amazingly motivated and temporarily amazingly motivational in Jamaica, they realized it's a pathetically fucking retarded idea to think that cannabis makes you lazy, particularly sativa, because it can temporarily give you energy. So it's a fucking misnomer if you think cannabis makes you lazy. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that being dependent on anything to need that I could, if I don't do a serious meditation every day, I could turn into one of these people who is negative or not even going to be acting sweet without cannabis. And that is just not okay. I need to be respectful all the time. So ideally, if I'm being real with the spirit, so again, it is. I'm not going to say it's not an amazing medicine, but it's interesting whenever I take a break or the idea of quitting it or the idea of even going 30 days without it seems so far out of my range of behavior that it's an interesting challenge to accept that it's even a possibility with the illnesses I've suffered. Yesterday I decided to begin to face my strong psychological addiction, again, whether for a tolerance break or to quit having such a strong need for weed. Not that have been taking it every day lately here, but even weekly, let alone daily, which isn't so easy to have a. It isn't so easy for me to have a codependency with it outside of the abundance of wonderful organic greenhouse and outdoor inexpensive cannabis medicines in California. I actually honor it as a good thing, and I am beginning to face what it does to my dopamine receptors in the brain with the big habits I've had over the years, and as dialed in and refined in Ganja Alchemy as they become. As much as I've attempted to be my own cannabis doc and only take it in in the way of Ganja Alchemy, as Bartsis calls it, which is far more holistic and healthy than smoking all day. For me, perhaps one of if not the worst parts of daily ganja usage are if I refuse to change for the better without cannabis, or I refuse to work or think about what I can do with my personal life without that being a motivator or a part of the pot of gold at the end of the action. And how I would, with daily usage, of course, probably the worst thing beside these psychological factors is how I would never dream and sleep. I mean, particularly when I took a little tincture every day, smoking bubble hash about every day, I would never dream and sleep. As Geraldine Orozco says, learning lucid dreaming is essential for the process of death, or when you actually leave your body. And in addition, being high on high-grade cannabis feels so good. You can get into the feeling. You can get into feeling great in a placebo perspective so deeply that you feel so good that waking life turns into a dream state. It seems, and you refuse to face even see your glaring psychological problems and change what must be changed while you are in a waking ganja dream. You feel so good. What can be overtly worse is a more blatant and obvious issue is that you never remember your dreams. And while this great feeling habit makes you want to it might actually make you want to go through reincarnation to get back to being high. And all of these Rastafarians who write songs and speak about Jah, Jehovah being short for Jehovah. Is this going to get them stuck so that they can never leave planet Earth because they got to be high? A month ago, I dreamed I was in Humboldt, California. I have never been there in 3D. This was right when I was running out of what I brought with me for the most part. And while the people seemed way cooler and nicer in that dream than the majority of the folks I knew in Santa Cruz, less like Babylonites, more like hippies, there was a subtly negative energy in that dream. It was the fact that all of the people were constantly getting high, piles of colorful hash, yet the theme of pursuit for pleasure persisted. The people seemed cool, but in my dream I had a feeling that, they were all chasing after the pleasure of ganja. Perhaps in waking life I was in psychological withdrawal. A week later I had a horrible war-based dream or nightmare that seemed implanted in my head by archons as it wasn't even me, possibly. Something I still think is possible, and this is probably the first time I've ever had the bloodkin listen to me record a video, which is an odd thing to combine with not having the cannabis to pump up my courage. So to add even more to the weird vibes I'm in here now. So I I have had a few decent dreams since then, but last night as I went to sleep, I dreamed of this video in the theta state, as I think is the one it's called when you're going to sleep. I decided it needs to be said again. The entire concept of death is a huge illusion. Okay? After leaving the body, the soul and the flesh suit transform. So, even taking a tolerance break from cannabis, it forces you to do the shadow work, to face your mortality psychologically. Sure, Humans 2.0 is a really ugly experiment in which the mad scientists of hell on earth are trying to create a scenario in which the Saturn Moon Matrix memory wipe won't be necessary, as they plan to upload these experiment victims into another cyborg humanoid robot flesh suit before, when they're about to leave. Yes, it is an unbelievably abominable psychological hell and mass formation, psychotic, attempted soul death on a planetary scale for those who took the experiment have self-replicating nanobot and graphene dioxide communities growing inside them, preparing them to be fully remote controlled by their 1% criminal Nazi and off-planet Elohim Anunnaki masters. A fate far worse and cruel than the soul harvesting confusion inherent in churchian worship. Far worse than worshiping God or, being recycled in death. These experiments are for the same sick, inverted purpose. For in the beginning and in the end, our souls are rays of the real light of the original creator, Christ Sophia. And there's nothing that the fallen angels can ever do to change that fact. Okay? As Jack Cruz emphasizes, that portion of Genesis is actually true and good and accurate. In the beginning, there was light. And the Creator said, "Let there be light," she said, and it is good. See, largely humans are a race captured by the false concept of death. Death, the idea of death, is how the whole violent society was built. Some say we lived lifetimes, maybe not as long as our Anunnaki. Some say we lived lifetimes, maybe not as long as our Anunnaki vampire junior gods, but over roughly 150 years on average before they lessened it and unplugged our DNA. And the pre-slave human woman, some psychics say the pre-slave humanoid human Christos race, women would menstruate only a few times a year before they drugged the fake-ass moon over here. So obviously, any action humans have done based on the fear of death or fear of punishment, what has been accomplished based on the fear of God has been soul killing. Okay? Inverted, atrocious, slave creating, and loose feeding, and while seemingly reckless actions done in fearlessness can lead an individual or collective to freedom, improvement, expansion of life, and the basics of heroic acts that have shown ensouled humans save their own life, prove to themselves and others that they are rays of the Christ, prove that they are divine beings through certain acts. Okay? There's many hundreds and thousands of examples I'm sure you can think about, both in media and in history or herstory, that haven't been erased even, Sure, they infiltrated them and changed their words and made them a part of the system like Yeshua, but you can still find examples of this. There is a healthy awareness. There is a healthy awareness of the imposition of bodily death, however, and that is the acceptance of cycles of nature, or the actual organic part of timey, even though it's greatly accelerated by the dark side, rapidly aging us. We have to have acceptance of the real portion of multidimensional timey that your flesh suit or body mind is. Although being attacked by many pseudo-invisible weapons, it does age, and it is a 99% chance of leaving, that you will leave it, that your spirit will leave at the end. There is a great likelihood that you will have to leave it, and who wants to be in a 200-year-old human body anyway? There is a very large chance you will age and have to leave your body. Death, when it comes to souls, however, is an insult. Okay? Just like its corollary, the forcing by our masterful imposter gods on the moon of a complete memory wipe and hurling your soul back down to reincarnate and suffer in a slave family again, never to grow very much, never to awaken to much wisdom and enlightenment, to get dumbed down more every lifetime with gadgetry lately, every decade getting dumber, until you are forced to do it all again, ad nauseum, in perpetuity, forever, if you ask our junior lords. Yes, God the Vampire Father is a master of DNA tinkering and dumbing down humanoids and energy sucking, turning an entire pure divine planet, or a lot of it, and the original divine Namulu Christos humans into slaves or cows on a human farm, successfully for 1,000,000 years now, leading to Agenda 2030. But it's over for the actually courageous. For those of you who are actually courageous, maybe you can end this cycle of abuse. Maybe Wes Penra is right when he says, in claiming that enlightened master souls, when they left the forced reincarnation memory wipe system, they made holes in the Nephilium reversal grid, and you could actually fly out of this abomination after you leave your flesh suit. Maybe the greatest enlightened ones can take their bodies. However, for most of us, it is likely we will have only our souls, and we will have to face or escape the tunnel of light, AI light that leads to the moon, and our junior gods' guilt trips if we go in that tunnel. Death is a lie to keep you a slave and sell you movie tickets to the brainwashed, to sell movie tickets to the brainwashed humanoid souls who want to watch horror movies. All life, souls, and bodies decompose or change. Okay? All spirits or souls are going to change. All bodies are probably going to decompose or age, descend or ascend. Every night of good rest, our souls and body minds are forced to visit the fourth dimension, or the other side, or what the Aboriginals call dream time, or dream realms, or death realms. So, why not use the experience of dreams as your body's nature is forcing its own need of nightly rigor mortis on you to practice and get ready to ascend? Like if you knew me before I had the car accident, if you knew the person I was before that, you'd know that obviously that changed me, that skirmish, 5 days in the ER and 15 broken bones, that changed my soul's participation in a way, and that death is really all about transformation, if you're aware or even if you're not. If you are really wise and can limit your cannabis usage enough to face your soul and dreams and even have dreams, you can learn and discern the art of lucid dreaming. This is probably the best thing you can do to be ready if you don't want to be forced to reincarnate into a fucking slave family. Become a lucid dreamer or learn astral projection. And you can even do it while you're sitting in your chair awake. As you learn to control your dreams, as Castaneda taught, for example, and as Geraldine says, then you will be ready for death of your flesh suit and escape the junior god's attempted endless trashing of yourself. And great gratitude to the true creator Christ Sophia, and also to these filthy and powerful false lords of karma, self-imposed lords of karma who try to bounce their own, like the moral idiots that they are, as powerful as they are at turning us into idiots. You will finally be free of the lie of death. And learning astral projection and like, for example, also if you ever are able to do great works of art, that, people remember after you leave your body, you could become bilocational and to some degree deathless, or as NRBQ calls it, immortal for a while. Immortal for a couple hundred years after you die if you're Shakespeare or Mark Twain. Starting now. Starting now, you can become free of the fake idea that we grew up with around death and its control over your decisions in particular. If you enjoyed this commentary and you haven't already, make sure to subscribe on YouTube or follow me on Odyssey or Rumble if you want to hear more of the dirty details that I can't talk about on YouTube. And of course, if you have the courage, my family, create a great day and create a great night of dreams when you get there. Loving you, folks.